All right, so this week in Pax Day, we got some new patches getting sent to both the live and the test servers. It's Samhain, which is also kind of like Halloween, and we're going to talk about all of that as well as some commentary on PvP in its current state in the game. So hello and welcome back, all of you amazingly professional consumers of Pax Day and Pax Day related content out there. I'm Altari, the professional gamer, and this is another episode of the Pax Friday Review, the show where we talk about all of the fun, interesting, new, and exciting information regarding Pax Day over the last week. Like I said, we got a couple of new patches coming out this week. We're going to talk about that. We also are going to take a little bit of time to talk about PvP in its current state in Pax Day and some of my thoughts on the exciting things that are going to be coming. So hopefully you all enjoy this. If you do, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe so you get notified whenever we have new Pax Day or Pax Day related content coming out, and share this video with anyone who is looking to stay up to date with Pax Day. First, we're going to head over to playpaxday.com to take a look at those patch notes. I will see you over there. All right, so here we are on playpaxday.com, and we got patch notes this Friday on October 31st. Happy Halloween again, y'all. And it is a light set of patch notes, but there is quite an exciting little bit of news here, and that is for our European players. We have a new world that has just opened up in Fenrir. That is right, so you now have the ability to go and head over to Fenrir, which is a new server. That means that there are officially 3 servers over on EU, as well as 2 servers on US and 1 in SEA. So that is a pretty cool bit of news. That means the game is continuing to grow to the point where they saw a need to increase the number of servers for the population. So they did spin up an entirely new world. So for that, they also updated the bracket population indicator to be more accurate. The high range was a little bit too wide, and now that is being more reflectant in specifically the EU region so that players know what is what. Additionally, these are also the patch notes from Arcadia from last week. The big one being that beech trees now have a hardness of 1 and are now choppable by a bronze axe. That's a pretty big win for a lot of new players because, let's be real, it is tough going after all of those saplings, and that has been changed. So now you can also go after some larger beechwood as well. And there was also some updates to localization, as well as adding a step for the Game Pass players and their Microsoft accounts to be linked to Pax Day, and looking through all of the legal terminology that they have over there. Additionally, the big one, this is a big one, beehives no longer are deafening, and that is incredible. We're very happy about that. We have a giant wall of bees, and up until literally today, as of time of recording, I mean, I don't see how people didn't turn their sound off if they were next to it. It was very, very loud. Now, in addition to that, we also got some VFX changes, as well as now lower tier corrupted pigs will be dropping the appropriate relics, so you'll be able to get gadfly larvae and all of that from them, and some additional UI fixes, as well as a crafting XP increase now correctly being displayed with your subscription and correctly being reflected in your journal. So the numbers are actually accounting for what was actually showing up before. Everything is now consistent. And they also fixed a pretty hilarious bug with characters' undergarments not being visible when they were sitting down in particular stances. Other than that, some other technical issues were fixed. Pretty small patch note for today. And that's why I wanted to spend some time talking specifically about PvP, its current status in Pax Day, and talking about where it's going to be going next. So I will see you over in the next topic. All right, so here we are. Wanted to take a quick couple of minutes to talk about the current status of PvP in Pax Day, and also wanted to take a second because one, other news came out this week, specifically that another PvP oriented game, specifically New World is officially shutting down in 2026. That was actually a game that I played. And in fact, the channel really found its footing in New World very early on in our history. And New World had a very cool PvP system to it. A lot of people really enjoyed it. The combat system was really great. There were a lot of issues with the game, specifically with how it was coded, or for lack of a better way of saying it, not coded properly. And it caused a lot of issues. But the PvP scene over there was really great, especially towards the kind of first couple of months right after the game's release. And there were obviously a lot of bugs, but they had a great system. And the reason why I wanted to talk about PvP this week is, one, because with the news of New World shutting down, and now there's going to be a pretty big gap when it comes to PvP-oriented games and that kind of guise. Now, also, I can already hear the comments, or see the comments that I'm going to be reading about how Pax Dei's combat is nowhere close to New World's combat. And I do understand that they are quite different. However, they also do have some similarities. And at the end of the day, there is a great opportunity here for Pax Dei to be able to capitalize a little bit on PvP and what the future is going to hold. And it's interesting, to say the least, that as New World, this great PvP game is kind of sunsetting, that now Pax Dei is also really gearing up for the future of PvP in Pax Dei. The big one that I hope the devs really get to right now is dueling. And in fact, there's kind of three things that we're really going to talk about today. The first one is dueling and why it's going to be important, and important that it comes sooner rather than later. The second one is feudal houses. And then the third one is my concern with the delayed amount of time it's going to take to get alliances into the game. And these are just my thoughts. Normally, PAX Friday reviews, we talk about news, but this week was a pretty light week. So I'm going to fill the airwaves with a little bit of my thoughts this week. And obviously, this is a discussion, so please let me know down in the comments what your thoughts are as well. But in particular, first things first, dueling. The big reason why dueling needs to be in the game as quickly as possible, and many people are asking for it, and I'm pretty sure Mainframe is fully aware of this and working on dueling right now, is because if you want to practice PvP currently, you have to go into Lioness, and every time you practice, you are going to lose 40% of your gear. Because when you get killed by a player in Lioness, 40% of your gear gets deleted and turned into a completely different item. It is a bunch of shrapnel, basically. It's a bunch of scrap metal. That is not a great way for people to go and test out builds. That is not a great way for people to go and practice PvP with friendlies. And while me, on the other hand, I am more than fine with going in there and throwing down and tossing away a couple of bronze pieces here or there, I don't think many other people really, or the majority of people, would be very excited for that. And that's why dueling is really going to be important for it to come in the next couple of months. Because if you want a PvP scene to really pick up, you have to allow players to iterate and test builds out and to do all of that. And the biggest abrasion for that right now, at least in my opinion, is not being able to test those builds out against others. And that's going to be really important. One other area, just really quick to talk about when it comes to dueling. I know the developers, especially when we interviewed with them, I think just over a month and a half ago, one thing that they specifically mentioned, or they made it sound like, is that the dueling system was pretty much just going to encompass 1v1s. I do think that if they can do the 1v1s, that it would be a really good investment of their time to also just allow group PvP to happen as well. Even if it's only up to a single party dueling, I think that would be really conducive to promote PvP while not completely breaking the bank in terms of what needs to be done in that type of dueling system to make it working. A little bit more investment in that could go a really long way in helping teams be able to practice together in more friendlier places where they're not going to lose 40% of their gear every single time they want to test something and that's only with one life. It's pretty harsh when it comes to practice, and practice makes perfect in PvP. And if people can't practice, they're not going to do it, or they're going to be less likely to do it. And it's going to be really frustrating for them when they're out there PvPing and they're not able to practice and they're dying all the time. The next thing that we are going to talk about is feudal shrines and why I'm really, really excited for those coming. I have been pretty much, I would say, spending about 50% of my time in Lioness doing PvP and just running around, mostly just looking for PvP. I think I'm just off on the times. There's been a lot of PvP going on in Sif, which is the server that we're on. I just keep on missing it, so I apologize. I've been trying to get some video footage to put on here, but it's been pretty rough for me looking to find some PvP. I've just been really unlucky this week, unfortunately. But I've been really, really excited because we keep on going around all of the areas, and there are these POIs that exist in Lioness. They clearly look like something that we're going to fight over. There's a lot of strategy that's now going into it. People are doing a lot of these kind of line fights where you're right at the entrance to Lioness, and people are kind of skirting in and out, trying to tease things out. People are yoinking players from inside, like as they're PvP tagged, pulling them back out, trying to root them and get them locked. It's kind of a weird dynamic right now, but the reason why I'm excited for Feudal Shrines is because that's going to give us something to fight over in the future. There's going to be some kind of territory, or there's going to be some kind of claim or something that you're going to be able to do with these Feudal Shrines. And that's going to give us a reason and a thing to fight over, so that we're not just kind of sitting at like the entrance to Brazilian waiting for someone to come and walk by, or alternatively at the entrance to Lioness or something like that. It's going to really improve it. One thing that I have noticed a lot more in this particular verse is time to kill is actually pretty high, especially when you have a healer. And that's actually a really cool thing. Dueling, obviously, all the dueling stuff that we've done in the past, it's a pretty low time to kill, mostly because no one has heals. But once you have heals, it really becomes a dynamic thing. And we did get in one fight this week. Unfortunately, I wasn't fast enough to hit the record button, but it took us about a minute to go through the fight. Nobody ended up dying, which was unfortunate, and they ended up escaping, making their way into the safe zone. But the interesting thing is that we were fighting for a solid couple of minutes, and it was just going back and forth, back and forth. There was a lot of positioning happening and a lot of other things going on, but the time to kill was relatively high. I think it's important that Pax Dei finds kind of a balance with that high time to kill, because especially with the amount of time it takes to get to Lioness, with the amount of time that it takes to run anywhere in Pax Dei, if you die and you lose 40% of your gear, that means you have to go re-gear at an altar in one of the trade towns, or you're going to have to go all the way home and then port back to Lioness and then find where your people are. That takes so much time. So you need to have a high time to kill for players so that they actually feel like they're getting something out of it and they didn't just waste an hour of their time to get killed in the first 2 seconds. Obviously, that can still happen if you get focused, but it is going to be really, really important for us to have things to fight over and for the time to kill in those fights to be relatively high so that people can feel like they're actually making a difference in a fight and all of that. Now, there have been some fights I have either seen, heard of, or been a part of that have finished very, very quickly. That is totally possible as well. If you get caught unexpectedly in the PvP zone, you will get messed up. Now, that leads us to the third thing that I wanted to talk about today, and that is alliances and a concern that I have about them. Specifically on the current roadmap, it says that alliances are going to be coming by the first part of 2026. Why do I think that is an issue? I already think it is an issue because with PvP as it exists right now, obviously numbers are king. People are constantly joining more and more groups, but there is a consolidation of who's in what group. There are several groups that have over 100 members on Sif, and those groups are at a definitive advantage when they're out in Lioness PvPing en masse. That is mostly because they have more people than other smaller groups, which means it's going to force other smaller groups to either consolidate or to just not engage in the combat, or alternatively, they can engage in the combat, but they're going to be at a disadvantage because they can also hurt other friends or allies that exist there. And that's why I think alliances are going to be really, really important for mainframe. And I do hope that they actually bump up the release of alliances to also come with feudal houses, just because I would hate to see a bunch of groups have to consolidate, even though they're allied with each other and they have their own way of managing themselves and their players. They might have to consolidate together in order to be able to fight larger groups that already exist, which would effectively be the same function as if an alliance existed in game and all of these individual feudal houses joined forces to form an alliance, which would then have the same effect. So hopefully that's not the case of what's happening. I can already see the trend is going in that direction of just groups consolidating into kind of PvP style clans right now. And then maybe it'll switch back to smaller feudal houses in the future. We'll just have to wait and see. But I would love to hear what all of you have to say about my thoughts on PvP in the comments down below. It was a pretty light week, so I hope you enjoyed this conversation of my thoughts on PvP. But either way, I'm sure you'll tell me down in the comments. And with that being said, please don't forget to like this video, subscribe, so you can get notified whenever we come out with new Pax Dei or Pax Dei related content, and share this video with any of your friends who are interested in staying up to date with all things Pax Dei. Light week, also Halloween. Happy Halloween. And I hope you all have a great weekend. Until the next video, I'm Altari, the Professional Gamer.